It's time for Cody's Critter Corner. This story is called Franny's Nest. Franny was a bird, a robin, and she had a friend Fancy, and they were talking because it was now the beginning of nest building season, and they were each going to build their nest and lay their eggs and sit on them and then wait till they hatch and have their baby chicks, baby birds. And so they were talking. They were just getting ready to start their nests, and Fancy said, "Well, Franny, it's time to build the nests, and I'm going to go over there and build mine, and I'll talk to you later. It's going to be a hard day. It's always so much work." And Franny agreed and said, "I'll see you later." And so Fancy went off, and as she was flying along, looking for materials to build her nest with, she happened to glance down, and she saw something that she wanted to check out. So she flew down, and there, by the side of a trash can, someone had spilled out of the trash some tissue, like Kleenex tissue. And she looked at it, and it was so pretty. It was pink. She had never seen anything pink to build a nest with before. And she was Fancy after all, and she always wanted to have the nicest looking nest. So she picked up some of the little pieces, and she took them, and she began to build her nest. And she thought, "Oh, this is so wonderful. Usually I have to go all over the place looking for the right materials, and now this is all easy." So she finished her nest, and she went flying back into Franny's area, where Franny was still gathering twigs and sticks. And she said, Franny, I'm already done building my nest." And Franny almost dropped the stick she had. She said, "How could you be done so quickly? It's too fast. Are you sure you're done?" "Yes, I'm done. Would you like to see my nest?" "Sure," said Franny. Fancy was very proud of it as they flew together over to Fancy's nest. And Franny looked at it, and she touched it, and it looked pretty. She was like Fancy liked, but she also noticed it felt pretty good. It felt pretty strong. She thought, "Wow. Well, all I need to see now, Fancy, is what did you build it with? What is this stuff? It doesn't look too bad, but where's the building materials?" So Fancy said, "Well, you are just so lucky because there was extra, and I'll take you to see it." So they flew back together to the trash can, and there on the ground there was still some of the pink tissue paper. And so Franny went over to it, and she looked at it, and then she picked it up. When she picked it up, she realized how flimsy and frail and easy to rip and everything it was. And she said, "You built your nest out of this flimsy stuff?" And Fancy got a little upset and a little mad. She said, "Yes, you saw it. It was fine. It was beautiful. If you don't want my help, that's perfectly fine. You go do it the slow way, but I'm going to do it my way." And Franny said, "Well, that's fine, Fancy, but I would never build my nest out of material that is this weak. I want a strong nest. I want that what I used to build my nest needs to be something strong too." Well, Fancy wasn't very happy, but she flew off on her own. And she went back to her nest. They both finished building their nest, Franny and Fancy. And Fancy, the day came, and she was ready to lay her eggs. So she went to her nest, and she laid her eggs. And then she began the long process of sitting on them. And everything went fine until the night of the big rainstorm. Fancy sat on her nest very faithfully, and she began to have the rain coming all around her, and she looked around. She was used to this. It happened every year that it might rain while she was nesting. And she sat there, but pretty soon she began to feel something strange. She thought, "This is strange. The bottom of my nest is starting to feel a little bit soggy." And she looked outside her nest. She saw pieces of it were kind of dripping and falling off. And she thought, Oh no, this doesn't seem like the right material. And sure enough, it wasn't long till the bottom of her nest got wet. You know what happens to Kleenex or tissue when it gets wet? Sure enough, the bottom of the nest broke, and out fell her eggs down to the ground, and they all broke. Poor Fancy. There would be no chicks for her this year. She felt bad. Meanwhile, Franny was also sitting on her nest in the storm. It was a terrible storm, and she was getting wetter and wetter, but she could even close her eyes and sleep, because Franny knew that her nest was strong. She knew her nest could take the wind and the rain, because she had built her nest out of strong material, the material God designed for her to use for her nest. She listened to the instinct in her that God had put there, and so Franny's nest stayed strong. We need to be careful in our lives that we don't build our lives out of materials, out of things that are not strong and won't stand up against the hard weather that comes, hard things that come in life. The foundation we need to build our life on is the Bible. The Bible is God's Word, and it's God's Word. You see God's Word there that the cross is coming out of? God's Word is the foundation for our life. We have to learn it, and we have to obey it. That's what gives us a strong foundation. And then whatever happens, we'll be safe, and we'll be okay. So, just remember that, okay? Bye for now. Bye.